Hi folks, the Filipino P here. And to most of you listening to me right now, Happy Halloween! You're probably jumping up and down to answer the door and maybe even scaring the kids that come to your house. Now to you, that seems perfectly normal and a lot of fun. But most countries don't even celebrate Halloween. In the Philippines, we'll be going to the cemetery this weekend, but not to hand out candy. Because for us, it's the Day of the Dead. So, the tradition of Halloween is a Western thing, and it's mostly popular in the US and Canada and the UK. But over here in the Philippines, we celebrate the holiday according to our Spanish roots. Instead of one day called Halloween, we have a 2-day affair called Undas, which includes All Saints' Day on November 1st and All Souls' Day on November 2nd. About a week before the holiday, we go to the cemetery and clean up our relatives' graves by putting new flowers down and sweeping away the dust and dirt. And on All Souls' Day, we celebrate the Day of the Dead. We bring candles and food to the burial sites of our loved ones and say prayers for their souls. If a family has enough money, they bring their dearly departed's favorite meal and leave it on their grave. But if a family's poor, like mine was, they give the dead a few minutes to eat their fill and then devour the food themselves. Now, either the dead are on a strict diet or else we got their orders wrong, but I was always relieved to see that none of the food ever got eaten by the ghosts. Now, this might not sound like much fun at all compared to trick-or-treating and passing out candy, but it's our way of binding us to our ancestors and to our history, because on the Day of the Dead, we also tell stories about the relatives we remember, as a way of keeping their memories alive. But there is a similarity between the way you celebrate and the way we do it. This is a weekend for scary movies and ghost stories on both sides of the Pacific, because we Filipinos just love our superstitions and creepy monsters. And that's the topic of this video, the weird stuff that Filipinos actually believe. Now, I made this next part of the video over a year ago, but very few people got to see it. So I hope you enjoy it in between the ringing doorbell and things that go bump in the night. Today we're going to take a trip into the shadowy realm of the superstitious Filipino. Now every culture has its own beliefs and superstitions, like the bad luck that results from walking under a ladder, or the feeling of dread caused by a black cat crossing your path. But nothing can hold a candle to the number of wacky beliefs that persist here in the Philippines. Don't believe me? Then just watch this. Now, in most of the West, you've largely abandoned the belief that your superstitions have any basis in reality. Sure, everybody knows someone that still thinks that the next 7 years will be filled with misfortune just because they broke a mirror. But those beliefs are usually referred to with a wink and a nod, and not taken very seriously. And when they are, you're more likely to find yourself just laughing it off. Unfortunately, Filipinos don't require a very high bar for evidence. And whatever your neighbor says carries as much weight as legitimate research. Most Filipinos, and yes, I said most, really do believe some of the things I'm about to reveal. It's not just folklore that's passed down through generations to scare the kids into submission. We actually live our lives as if these things are real, and they often guide our actions. My culture is more about tradition than about discovering the truth. So if you visit the Philippines, get ready to witness some bizarre behavior. Let's get started with the subject of children. Every pregnant Filipina knows about the fetus-eating monster called the Aswang, a demon that can sniff out an expectant mother and disguise itself as a beautiful woman who stalks the Filipina at every turn. When it's time to strike, it becomes a demon with an impossibly long tongue that creeps into her bedroom while she's sleeping and dines on the fetus, causing miscarriages all over the Philippines. Although given the population here, I'd say the Aswang has been neglecting her duties. One of the best defenses against this creature is the deployment of garlic placed around the sleeping woman. Apparently, garlic simply ruins the taste of fresh fetus. Another countermeasure is getting the father to stand outside or even under the house, completely nude and furiously waving a sword all night long, which seems like nothing more than a punishment for getting her in that condition to begin with. And if the police arrive after getting a call about a naked maniac with a weapon, just explain that you're guarding an unborn baby and all will be forgiven. But even once the child is born, it's still at risk from magical forces. Be very careful when greeting a Filipino baby, because if you make too much of a fuss over it by complimenting its looks or interacting with it for too long, you'll make the child sick, what we call usog. So before telling a Filipino mother what an adorable child she has, you have to say the counterspell, fuera usog, which definitely, absolutely creates a very real barrier that shields the baby from your harmful energy, whatever that is. But if for some reason the barrier doesn't hold and the child gets sick, there's only one thing to do. Get the offending adult to smear their saliva on the ailing baby's forehead. Now, you probably come from a place where smearing your bodily fluids on the face of a stranger's baby will land you in jail and on a list of sex offenders. But we actually believe that the way to cure a sick baby is to spit on it. Sounds perfectly logical, right? But the danger to your child doesn't end with people being nice to it. Oh no! Even when it gets a little older, evil creatures are just waiting to cause it harm. If you let your child play outdoors around noontime, there are elves who live in the dirt, and they might just take a liking to your child. Maybe it's the stream of spittle dripping from their forehead, but for whatever reason, they want to snatch it. Instead of just grabbing it and dragging it underground, they have an even more insidious plan. They cast a spell on it to make the child sick and die, and then they steal its spirit so that no one's the wiser. This probably explains why my mother kept me indoors as a child, as long as I was behaving. When I became unruly, I distinctly remember her telling me to go play in the dirt. Oh well. But it's not only the elves that Filipinos have to worry about. There's a whole host of creatures lurking right outside your door that get really pissed off if you wander into their territory. Dwarves, fairies, diwata, tikbalang, they're all just waiting for you to disturb the peace. And if you've ever been to the Philippines, you know we're not exactly the quietest people. So how do you protect yourself from easily offended forest dwellers? The most effective way is to proceed very cautiously, and every few steps, say Tabi-Tabi po, which basically means, excuse me, don't mean to intrude. This should calm the spirits as you pass. But if you have to relieve yourself on a nearby bush, you better say the phrase very distinctly, because they don't like acid rain on their heads any more than you would. If you said the right words and they think you're truly sorry, they'll let you pass. But if they don't appreciate being forced to take a yellow shower, the spirits of the forest will cause you to get lost and go in circles till the end of your days. Fortunately, Filipinos have devised a countermeasure. Just take off your clothes and turn them inside out, and voila! The quickest path out of the forest will appear. Now, I'm sure this method is 100% effective and scientifically tested by our brightest minds. How do I know? Because telling a pretty young woman who's lost in a forest that the only way to get out is to strip is something only a brilliant Filipino would come up with. But even if you're following all the rules and being a considerate trespasser, there's always the chance of encountering a creature that can ruin your life. The Kapre. Sitting in the branches of a tree and smoking a cigar, the Kapre can grow up to 9 feet tall, with dark skin, a hairy coat of fur, and a foul-smelling body odor. Despite his less than appealing characteristics, he's also somehow a ladies' man who attempts to woo beautiful women by convincing him to live in his tree. If they reject his offer, he may stalk the woman for the rest of her life, just like a regular guy. But on the plus side, he carries a magical stone that grants wishes. So choose your Kapre wisely. Now, if you think you've heard it all, let's turn to the subject of death and the recently departed. When attending someone's wake, it's very important not to take any food home with you, not even a single piece of candy. Because if you do, misfortune will follow you home. But bad luck isn't the only thing following you. You might have the spirit of the dearly departed tagging along. Upset about the contraband M&Ms. so make sure you don't go directly to your house. In order to shake the spook, you need to employ the proper ectoplasmic evasion techniques by going to various other locations first to give them the slip. I recommend dropping by a government office to do some paperwork, because even the dead don't want to wait 5 hours just to speak to someone about a $2 parking ticket. But even if you think you made it home without an escort, don't go inside yet. Before you even left for the wake, you should have put a different outfit in your yard so you could change your clothes outside before entering, so you'll confuse the ghost by looking like someone else. Now, I didn't notice it till now, but I'm starting to see a pattern here. Whoever's coming up with all these rules always includes something about public nudity, and I bet he's laughing his butt off watching everyone run around naked. Anyhow, once you follow these obvious and completely logical steps, it's finally safe to open your door. Now, I really don't want to inconvenience my friends and family like that when I die, so instead of making them run all over town trying to get away from me, I decided to save everyone the hassle and just be cremated. You're welcome. But what about a happy subject like marriage? No, we Filipinos have pretty much sucked the fun out of that too. We have a long list of do's and don'ts that's enough to turn your day of bliss into an anxiety-filled day of dark dangers and ominous omens. To avoid bad luck, the bride isn't allowed to try on her wedding dress until the day of the ceremony. Can you imagine if Western women had to guess how the dress would fit until minutes before the wedding? Talk about an anxiety-filled day. It's also considered bad luck to give sharp or pointed objects as wedding gifts because we believe they'll cause a marriage to fail, which makes perfect sense since giving a sharp knife to a woman who just witnessed her wedding dress explode under pressure as she walked down the aisle probably isn't the best idea. But here's a rare bit of good fortune. It's believed that giving a chamber pot as a wedding gift will bring good luck to the newlyweds. I guess that's because after the divorce, the man will still have a pot to piss in. See? We Filipinos can be practical too sometimes. But just in case all that stuff wasn't crazy enough, here's a random assortment of other superstitions that many of us actually believe. If you jump up and down on New Year's Eve, you'll grow taller. If you smile or have any fun at all on Good Friday, your wounds won't heal if you get injured. If you go to bed hungry, your spirit will leave your body in search of food and become trapped in another dimension. If you visit a Filipino friend, make sure you say "tao po" when knocking on their door, which assures them that you're human and not some demon or evil creature coming to sell them life insurance in human form. If you go to sleep with wet hair, you'll go insane. That explains it. If you take a picture of 3 people, the middle person will die before the other 2. If a pregnant woman looks at pictures of beautiful people, her baby will be equally attractive. But if her eyes fall upon an ugly person, her child will be hideous. If you step over someone who's sleeping, they'll stop growing. If you cut your hair or clip your nails after dark, you're in for 9 days of bad luck. If you drop a utensil on the floor, it means someone's coming to visit. Dropping a spoon means a woman's coming. And dropping a fork indicates a man. I wonder what dropping a knife means. Maybe a ladyboy. If you point at a tree, you anger the invisible creatures that live there. And the only way to take it back is to bite your own finger. The more it hurts, the safer you are from supernatural misfortune. And this is just scratching the surface. There are literally hundreds more just like them. And the thing to remember is that to many Filipinos, they're real. Now, by this point, I think you can begin to see how magical thinking is rampant here. And although these things might sound silly and harmless, this type of irrational belief system has real-world consequences. For example, here's an urban legend that probably has its origin in fact. When building a bridge, it's necessary to put the bodies of children into the foundation so that their blood will mix with the concrete to make it stronger and less susceptible to the forces of nature. The children should be harvested from the local population for maximum protection. Now, when I was a child, there was a rash of children going missing when a bridge was being built in my area. So my mother actually prevented me from playing outside until it was completed. I guess I must have been behaving again. But can you imagine growing up with the fear that you'd be snatched away from your family and buried in a bridge so your blood would improve motor vehicle safety? And kids in the West think they have problems. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you don't mind my bringing you a little Halloween before the holiday. And I'll be back on Tuesday with something fresh. Yep, I'll be back on Tuesday. But for now, I've got something I need to do. Today's actually my father's birthday, and since he died 32 years ago, I don't have many stories to tell about him, but it's the Day of the Dead, so I think I'll go pay my respects. Till then, stay away from black cats and don't break any mirrors. And if you're walking down the street and you see a Filipina dressed all in black with a veil over her eyes watching you from the shadows of a dark alley, it's just a Filipina P wishing you a happy Halloween. Till then, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like your own personal genie. Every week, I fulfill two of your wishes when I bring you magical content about life and culture in the Philippines and explain the differences between East and West. If you appreciate my efforts, all I ask is you give a thumbs up on this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you can see what I've conjured up next. And if you're really feeling like a generous master, please visit my Patreon page for extra content and exclusive videos and features. And now for that third wish, you have only to ask, and it's my pleasure to make it come true. What did you wish for? Master! I don't think I can do that, and Mrs. Master would not be happy about it.